And good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Best Doggone podcast with Ethan and Heather. Well, it's Ethan. Heather unfortunately can't be here this evening. Technology, Windows, blue screen of death. You all know what I'm talking about here, but we do have a special guest, Gina Prodan Kelly. Gina, thank you so much for being here.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
This is really fantastic to have you. Um, and want to let everybody know first of all that the Best Doggone podcast is part of the Fanatical Elves Network, a subsidiary of Fans First Sports Network. So thank you all for tuning in to the program. So Gina Prodan Kelly, if you didn't know her name, you should. You need to get to know her name. We talk all things Ohio sports. We talk Cleveland sports here. I know I'm repping the Tottenham Hotspur shirt here, but that's also a bit of an homage to a fellow Spurs fan here. We are a glutton for punishment, are we not?
Oh, it's an interesting choice to live across the pond and still choose.
Exactly. Now, I will tell you, this guy right here, the comment from Mike, he is across the pond. He is a Spurs fan, and he is a diehard Cleveland sports fan as well as Ohio State guy. So we always love having him. Oh, and what at least Paris Saint-Germain won. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I'll take it as good. Anyway, but for those of you who may not know, may not have read the local newspaper. Well, is it really a newspaper? Gina is part of a really big and fun and exciting endeavor that's going on in Cleveland and soccer coming to the land. Gina, you are the chief marketing officer for Cleveland Professional Soccer, and you are a founder of WPSL Pro Cleveland. And why don't you tell, for those of you who may not know, may not have heard, Gina, can you tell us a little bit about what WPSL Pro is, and also a little bit about just Cleveland Soccer, the Cleveland Soccer Group?
Sure. So WPSL Pro is and will be the first second division women's professional soccer league in the United States. It will launch in spring 2027 with probably between 16 to 20 teams, and Cleveland will be one of those founding teams. I signed an LOI in summer of last year to join WPSL Pro. At that time, we were still, as Cleveland Soccer Group, we were still pursuing our bid for the 16th expansion team for the NWSL. And for anyone who doesn't follow women's professional soccer, NWSL is tier 1. WPSL Pro will be tier 2, and there's currently nothing at tier 3. We'll get into that if you want to later. But when I signed that LOI, it was part of building an ecosystem from the ground up in Northeast Ohio to develop talent for not only the NWSL and Super League, but we'd love to provide a platform and a pathway for more women to rise to professional ranks in soccer, but also we'd love to land our first senior team U.S. women's national team member, and that was part of that goal. So Cleveland Soccer Group, as the story continues. So Cleveland Soccer Group was founded in 2022 by Michael Murphy and Nolan Gallagher. They, in a conversation, recognized that Cleveland was the last top 20 market without professional outdoor soccer. I make that point because the Cleveland Crunch is here and alive and well and has won championships. So, we need to give them their attention.
As you can see in the background there, I got my Hector Marinero jersey.
Yes, I love it. And I feel like on a daily basis, I tell people, people will tell me like, "Oh, I loved the Crunch." I'm like, "Love it now." But so at that time, they recognized that there was no professional outdoor soccer, and we were the last large market, and they started pursuing both women's and men's professional teams. They secured an MLS Next Pro team on the men's side in 2022, pursued the NWSL in 22, and finished in the top 4. When they were in one of those final conversations, someone at the table said, "Well, where are you going to play?" And they said, "Well, if we get a team, we'll build a stadium." And they were like,
You didn't say You should have said, look, we will build it. You will come. Something along those lines, right?
Right. And you would think that that's the way and so I do have to say what I do try to keep myself open to, whether it's, what we put on social media or the conversations I have, is really, I try to keep us open and very transparent about the experience, because most of us have never been through the experience of sports ownership and don't understand some of the dynamics, myself included. And so, there is the expectation that you have the venue before you get the team. So after that, Michael and Nolan and other advisors in that circle spent time understanding, what it took to get a stadium built, where to build it. And then in late 2023, they launched the back the bid campaign for the second bid for an NWSL team. And that's when I came on to run that campaign. We managed to get 16,000 season ticket pledges. We put together a really great ownership group, had a killer stadium plan. We made it to the final three. Denver got the team. So this circles us back.
Why is Denver always stealing stuff from us?
I'm not gonna lie. I have a lot of anger.
Isn't that? I think so. I think, you know what? Look, your fellow Shaker Heights resident there, who lives near my father and stepmom, in Shaker Heights, he has a pretty big platform, and he's from Denver, and their studio's down on the East Bank of the Flats. We might have to go talk to Mr. Hammer.
I do. I believe our children go to the same school, so I'll one of those like parent coffee things. I'll wait around.
Yep, you absolutely should. I think that would be hilarious. No, I mean, all great people, just fantastic. So I apologize. I completely interrupted your flow there. But all right. So the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
2 questions for you. The plan is to open up the WPSL team in the 2027 campaign in the spring.
Yes, so it's WPSL Pro. I just want to point that out because WPSL is this is a growth out of WSL, which is the longest running league, women's league in the country. So I just like to make sure that they get their nod because it's still here.
Okay, sorry about that. So the WPSL Pro team. So when you build the stadium, so when will construction begin on that? And I think I heard you talk about maybe. Again, this is on another podcast somewhere you were speaking. It's like a modular based approach. So could you fill us in a little bit about that and the timeline for that?
Yes. So we would like to break ground in summer or fall. And we'll be using lean construction and a modular build stadium. So basically what that means is the pieces of the stadium are constructed offsite and brought on and assembled. That not only is more cost effective for what we're building right now, but it also gives us the flexibility to expand the stadium with success. So we'll build probably around a 10,000 seat stadium, but it has the flexibility to pretty quickly and seamlessly expand to 12,500 and 20,000 seats. And what that enables us to do is not only should we have the amazing problem of needing to seat more people, we'll be able to do that quickly, but should we have the opportunity to expand to other leagues, we'd still maintain the teams that we're acquiring now, the MLS Next Pro and the WPSL Pro. But should we have the opportunity to get, say, Division I teams on either side, we'd be able to very quickly say, and we'll have this 20,000 seat stadium in X number of months.
Right. I just happened to do a little research and saw that last season, the NWSL's average attendance was 11,235. So that's right in the ballpark of the capacity of the stadium. And, hopefully there's going to be a lot more growth. Soccer's huge. Soccer is everywhere except for really the United States on the professional level, right?
Right.
And Northeast Ohio, I played soccer when I was a kid. I guess I was probably indoctrinated into soccer with my dad being from England. And, so it was in the blood. You work really hard to knock down the doors of people in the community to get them on board for these pledges. How many pledges did you get for season tickets?
More than 16,000.
Right. So what does that how does that work out? Or do you say, okay, here's the stadium, you pledged, we come to you, and then they say, yes, we in fact would like to get season tickets? Is that how that will work?
So what we did when we announced our WPSL Pro team,
Okay.
and also announced our our stadium, so we put we sent a message to everyone who's on our list, but specifically the people who pledged, and said, if you pledged, the $26 that you pledged can now be used as a deposit. When people pledged, they bought a shirt. And so they weren't just throwing $26 at us. They did get something for it. But we wanted to thank people for being willing to invest in a team that didn't exist yet, in a stadium that hadn't been built yet, and like a dream that hadn't been realized yet. And so we wanted to be able to thank them and welcome them into this next phase of what we're doing. So anyone who's paying attention, who missed their email or just doesn't read email, and we'll continue to promote this, but that for anyone who pledged, they are able to transfer that $26 to a season ticket deposit. So right now we have our season ticket deposits are open, and it was really amazing the day that we announced that we were joining WPSL Pro, because before we even sent our message, before we were even public about it, we had a good number of season ticket deposits, just people who happened, I don't know if they just happened upon the website or what happened, but I started getting notifications because I updated the website, put the season tickets out there, and they already started coming in. So that is out there, and we have had an incredible pouring out of support. We've seen a lot of not only those season ticket pledges come in, but I think roughly, I'd say it's a 60-40 split of 60% people who hadn't pledged. So these are new people who have come in. And keep in mind too, this is still 2 years out. So that we've had as much support as we've had, not only during that initial phase, but now it's like, it gives me really, really great hope for what we'll be able to build. And I hope that, we can get louder around Cleveland, that, this is something that we want to be part of, and this is something we want to see happen.
Yeah, I think there is certainly a lot of room for growth there in the market. So you said that in the WPSL Pro there'll be 16 teams is what you're expecting. How many matches per season are supposed to be on the schedule?
So we'll have that will depend on how many teams there are. We'll have between 16 to 20 to launch, and we're really focused on a regional structure, so
Okay.
that particularly for finances, that it makes sense. But it also makes some really good regional rivalries. There'll probably be, I believe, between 20 to 24 matches per season. So what we want to do is be able to start within specifically like the NWSL season. This is a really great opportunity to not only capture talent that maybe needs an extra year before they play in Division One, needs some extra time, and maybe they end up in the other Division One league. But we think this is by setting the season within the boundaries of the NWSL season, we think we can capture some really high level talent, and be able to put an amazing product on the field. So it's not just about develop. It is absolutely going to help develop players. I mean, considering that the United States has the top talent in the world. And just a quick aside, over the past year, what got this on my radar was the number of women I talked to who had made it to the NWSL, but maybe got injured and then just couldn't afford to recover, get back. They had to get other jobs. They had to go, to recover, they had to go overseas, and just, their career stayed there. This is an opportunity to keep the world's best talent in the United States. And that's what we want to put on the field for our team in Cleveland. We want to win championships on both the men's side and the women's side. And really, when we think about, whether we're thinking about pro rel on the USL side, or developing world class talent on the MLS side, we need more people. We need more people playing soccer, and we need more places for them to play here. And we need more ecosystems that are all like working together to develop great talent. And we have the base there. As I'm Croatian, so I understand the having soccer put right into your blood. And we, if Croatia, with its population, like 4.5 million, can produce the level of talent at the capacity that it does, the United States can produce world-class talent too.
Right. Now, you mentioned being Croatian, and I've heard this again. I try to do my due diligence here and listen and read things and see things. So your father played for the Croatian national soccer team?
Yes. So he played in the 70s and 80s, I believe. He is
That's
now a
amazing.
Molduch, but he, but he, yes, he is such an inspiration to me, not only for what career he had, but that at 72 he's still playing. So Croatia Cleveland is a soccer club. Is still a soccer club. He played Croatia Cleveland when he moved here, and they did an alumni game last year, I believe, and it was guys from every age who came, and you really see the way. And it's really hard to explain to people who again don't have soccer in their blood. Like, we're seeing these guys come together across several generations, and seeing guys out there who are pushing 80, running like they're unfazed by age, because this is the game that gives them life and brings people together. So yeah, I'm trying, while we still have time, to record his stories and understand the life he's lived.
No, that is amazing. Very inspirational. I'll tell you what, sharing the personal story of the parents or the soccer in their blood. My dad, he's still got better footwork at 80 years old than I've ever had. I
Right.
mean, getting him out there a couple years ago, we were there over winter break. I'm down in Virginia now, and brought my kids up, and just to see him play soccer a little bit with my daughter. And again, footwork better than mine ever was. I never really developed too well. I became a big Mark Price fan.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, soccer didn't do me so kindly as it were, but that's okay.
Well,
That is
I talked to somebody recently. There's a really his name, a man named Nestor, who works for Sandusky Library. I hope he doesn't mind me calling him out. He reached out because he thinks, especially in the area that they serve, there's a growing Hispanic community that he wants to meet where they are, and like really use soccer as a bridge to bring more people to the library and understand the resources, but also explore programs. Anyway. I just want to commend him for being very forward thinking. But he told me that he grew up in Mexico, and he was like, you hit a certain point where you learn whether you're a fan or a player.
yes. I was never going to be big enough or tall enough and fast enough to play NBA basketball or professional football, and didn't have the hand-eye coordination for baseball. So I commentate on it.
Right.
That's what I figured out. That's my niche right there. So I know I've gone way, far from where we're at. So the tickets for the season tickets, the single game tickets, what do you imagine the prices being like?
So we have yet to determine that. The comparable prices for standard seats, and don't quote me on this, but they're between, I wouldn't say, like $10 and $50. That's what I've seen in other venues of similar size and similar level. But one of the things that we're trying to do is reach out to people, especially once they make a season ticket deposit. And this is something we'll be doing on a rolling basis, is have a conversation with as many people as possible and say, what is this worth to you? $0 is not an appropriate answer. um, but really understanding not only what if you're a family of four, like what makes sense and what's going to get you to the game, but not only what are you expecting to pay to get in, but what do you expect to see when you get there?
Right.
And what does that experience look like at, the general admission level, at premium level, whatever level? We want to really understand, because like this is an opportunity not to just like plop down, an experience that somebody else has created someplace else, but to create something that's uniquely Cleveland, and that meets uniquely Cleveland soccer fans where they are. Some people are new to the sport. Some people are new to women's sports, to men's soccer. We want to be able, and then there are some people who have a world of experience, attending games. So we want to understand what expectations are. And, we're not necessarily going to be, perfect at our first match, but we want to continue to grow with people. And I very firmly believe that, if you start that conversation now, that we can all grow together. And it may be, going to matches and continuing, it will be actually continuing to get feedback and understanding. It's not going to be perfect for everyone, but, we'll continue to try to build something that we all love and want to come back to.
Right. Well, it certainly seems that there is a very loyal fan base of the MLS. I mean, the Columbus Crew have a fantastic following. I mean, say what people will about or want to say about the Haslams, and when it comes to the Browns, I mean, they did step in, and this team has a new stadium and they've got a great following, and so do many of the other MLS franchises. Do you kind of look at that and say, we can do that?
So Michael Murphy and I went to the Columbus Crew Miami game a
I
couple
was
weeks
going to
ago.
ask you. I was going to ask you if you went to that.
And I've been to a lot of soccer matches in a lot of different places, but being surrounded by 60,000 plus people in Cleveland for a soccer game, like chills the whole time. We kept looking around and just saying like, this, I mean, these are, and I understand. I understand. So Crew actually win things. We're going to win things too. Uh, um, but that was for, and I understand, it's messy, it's the Crew, but those were two out of town teams, in Cleveland. And there were a lot of like ands about like what could have prevented people from showing up for a soccer match. But they did, like they almost sold out a football stadium. And, we obviously, and of course, like the next, when we were sitting there, I mean, that stadium looked damn good with those soccer lines. It's too big for what, we, for what's, financially responsible. Turning on the lights is more than building something new. But it felt really good to see that people would show up for that and feel the energy. So it wasn't even, and that was the other thing. It's like, it was raining, it was cold. People stayed the whole match. They were in it. There was a lot of energy, and it felt right, and it felt like yes, Cleveland. Cleveland deserves this. Cleveland deserves soccer.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's kind of a shame that we don't have a NHL franchise anymore. I mean, the Monsters are doing great. I mean, they draw very well. They've carved out a real good niche for themselves there. And I've been when they were the Lumberjacks, I was still there, but I think they had left before, and then not come back as the Monsters. And I had already moved down to Virginia, so I kind of missed out on that. But down here, they don't have any professional sports, except I take that back. They've got the AA affiliate of, I think they're the Giants AA affiliate. It used to be the Braves, but that's all right. The Rubber Ducks go in and beat their butts, and I'm always happy about that.
And I think the Monsters are really a great example of like, not only are all of our teams great examples of how much Cleveland shows up for sports, but the Monsters are a minor league team. The average for AHL is something around 8,100 per match. Per match per game, for for the season, and the Monsters are somewhere north of 11,000. So you think,
Right.
it's considered, not one of the top or primary sports, but we're still showing up for it, and that's why we really do believe that what we're building for soccer, especially with the momentum soccer has right now, that we'll easily be able to create a community that shows up because we know that we're here.
Right, and there's going to be a great lead up, to the next Men's World Cup, and just getting the inspiration for the sport. I remember in the '90s, um, before the men hosted the World Cup, the excitement around that, and and maybe it was just the soccer fan in me, but you recall that and seeing them win that game, against Colombia. That didn't turn out so well for that guy, but anyway, we'll leave that there. No, I could see how that happened. Even, for example, the Cleveland Charge, the G League affiliate of the Cavs, does spectacularly well, and they moved him into what is it, the
Public auditorium.
public auditorium. Yeah, what a great use of the space.
Yes,
And
it's a beautiful venue.
I've seen the pictures, and I would love to get to a game. Just got to be in town at the right time.
Right.
And back in the day, you talked about the Cleveland Crunch. They just held the championship weekend there for the MLIS. It didn't turn out our way, but they had a great turnout. They are doing a phenomenal job over there. And, hopefully they'll have continued success. It would be great to be able to see them have enough continued or big enough attendance to be in a slightly larger venue. I mean, how much excitement does that help build the soccer community for you?
So the Crunch one has been so supportive of what we're doing, and I can't explain. Luciano in particular, reached out when like a year and a half ago and said, whatever we can do, whatever we can do to help you reach more people, to tell your story, let us know. And and we want to do the same for them. I really hope that by launching these two teams, that one of the things that I talked to the Crunch about is how can we start getting people used to soccer all year round, because with these teams we'll have like a nap in December.
Right, exactly. No, the championship was just in did that occur in April, right?
Yes.
That was in April. So then you finish the indoor season and be right into the outdoor season. That's fantastic. It's really nice. And to have the good thing about the Guardians is that you don't have to spend an arm and a leg and go to see a quality event or entertainment. And it seems like and sounds like that's what you're going to get out of professional soccer in Cleveland.
Yeah, and I hope that we can make it. We want it to be. We have a lot of programs that we want to implement outside the stadium that makes soccer more accessible. That that just it leads to better outcomes. It's just a really fun game to play. It's just it's good for your soul. It brings people together. But we don't want to stop accessibility to soccer outside of the walls of the stadium.
Right.
So it is really we want to be able to make it accessible to whether it's groups of friends, individual people, families, whatever it is. We want people to be able to come to the games and make it a great habit. And I do, I want us to be able to drum up enough excitement so that, I would love, especially once we can hit a certain point in what we're building, that that we can find ways to help support and elevate the message that the Crunch needs. That they need a venue. They need a venue that seats more than 600 people. They need a venue that's closer to the city, and we need to figure out a way to elevate them where they deserve to be. Because as I like to say to people, I was really excited about the 2016 NBA championship, but I hadn't had a drought. It's like, if you love soccer, you've in Cleveland, you've won a number of championships.
Yes. I was there back in the '90s at the Convo.
Yeah.
So that,
and what a gift that is to experience that, and to be able to I'd love for there was a video from the most from the MLS championship, and it was the players looking around at just the full arena, and just it's like they haven't played in a venue that can do that. And that was a one-off weekend. They did a great job building up the excitement for that, but it's like they deserve that every single game, every season.
Well, right. They play a fantastic game, and they are a great group. I had Ryan Ruiz on the podcast, and McCain Spraggling and Bobby Anchar on the phenomenal guys. And someone who I reconnected with via the Crunch fans who I went to college with at Kent State. We'll get to that in a minute. Her kids are huge Crunch fans, and the experience they've had and getting to know some of the players has been amazing. So I'm hoping for the best for all those guys and for everybody there building up this sport in Cleveland, because it's interesting when you see people or you hear people who just poo-poo soccer.
Right.
And I don't fully understand it. I'm just like, yeah, you gotta be invested in it a little bit. You can't just be like, I don't know.
So Seattle Sounders have a program that I don't know the exact process of it, but basically they say like your first soccer experience like is on us. And I think that you have to really understand and trust the magic of soccer, because I feel like very few people go to their first soccer match, a well-produced soccer match, and then say, "Nah, not for me."
Right. Yeah, well, they make fun. It's kind of like when you watch. If you're a fan of The Simpsons, they show an episode where they're watching a soccer match, and they pull up the play-by-play of the Spanish announcer, and it's really exciting. He's saying, and it sounds really exciting, even though they're passing the ball back and forth and doing nothing.
Right.
And then they go over to the American or the United States announcer, and it's really boring and bland.
Right.
For me, and I'll sit and I'll watch the Premier League, and those guys are amazing. And I had the really great fortune to cover Kent State women's soccer team when I was at school there and doing the Daily Kent Stater. And you really get into it, and you got to become invested in it, and invested in the team, and invested in the players. And you will grow to enjoy it and love it and cheer for these people.
Right. And I always think it's interesting when people will say, and I feel like a lot of it is people who will see soccer and not get it, and instead of saying I don't get it, and like they they just try to put it down. But it's like, I mean, I don't get golf, but I'm not telling anybody don't watch golf. My big thing with golf is that I'm terrible at it. So it's like, it's not golf's fault that I'm terrible at it, but it's like, I don't think, and I feel like it's an interesting thing, because I think that soccer is growing at such a rate that especially people who like just it hasn't clicked for them, there's kind of like that fear of, I don't know. I feel like there's something inherent. So I feel like people just need to open up. And I think that that's kind of like my general lesson for the world right now, is like, everyone just needs to open up. And I feel like, and again, that's, there's so much more to soccer than the game that's on the field, that, there is really that opportunity, to open yourself to something new and sing with the people around you.
Yes, that's exactly right. That is something that I love, watching the games, because it wasn't until the past, I don't know, 10 years or, not that long ago, you couldn't watch a Premier League game.
Right.
There used to be a thing on, this is when I'm a kid, I'm old and stuff, in the 90s, it would be like on once a week on, like, I think it was like Fox Sports Channel, or it might have been Sports Channel Ohio. And it was like an hour-long program. And I don't know if they even showed a whole game, but they did highlights and so you didn't get to experience all that. And I've never been to England, but to hear the fans chanting, and it sounds like they're all singing the same tune though.
Yeah, it's all, I feel like there's like what Ode to Joy, when the Saints come marching in. Like,
Yes.
there's like certain melodies.
Yes.
British people, they can nail a tune, like spur of the moment, improv.
No pun intended, huh?
Right.
Yeah, Mike made a good point. Don't get too invested into Spurs. It's like being a Browns fan. It really is the most Browniest.
I'm 25 years in, and
So how did you become a Spurs fan? I'm going all over the place here, but Mike asked this question, and I have this on my list. What's the story? How did you become a Spurs fan?
I lived in Tottenham, and it's funny, the journey that you take from across your life, and how it all kind of like adds up. and lands you where you are. So when 20 some years ago, was in Tottenham, and I think one of my favorite memories from it was when I arrived. My mom came with me, and we were in a cab because she had a lot of luggage, and um, and I remember telling the driver where we were going, and he was like, "Why are you going there?" Because it's not, it's not, it's not the pretty part of London that I think, the average young American woman is like going to with her mom, who has all of her luggage. And I do remember my mom was kind of struck at that moment. So my mom grew up in Croatia, came here, lived in St. Clair Superior, and then eventually moved to Euclid and then to San Diego. But she's in the car with her 20-something-year-old daughter, and the cab driver is taken aback that we're going there, and she's like, "Why? Is there something wrong with it?" I'm like, "Nah, don't worry, it's fine." And then he says to her, "Well, don't worry, we don't use guns here the way you do."
Oh my gosh. Oh
But the
boy.
best thing though is that her response was, "Well, how do you use them?"
Oh boy.
But then of course, like on our way there, there was a stabbing on the street, so that was when we learned about that. But my experience there was fine. But my when I was in my early 20s at that time, and I was really taken when it's a lower income area with a world class. Now, granted, this was the previous stadium, but
Right,
still,
White Hart Lane.
yeah, an incredible stadium in the middle of not necessarily an incredible appearing area. Um, and I remember at that time kind of being insulted by that. Like, what, like, how dare you like rub, this, your wealth in the face of all of us who, this is all we can, this is all we can do. And at that time, I didn't understand that, like, that was like, despite, that perception of it, like, this was what like filled people's hearts, and this is what made, made it changed life, brought them joy. And as I got older, and so I don't know, I feel like I was very attached to the team at that point after being there, and then kind of carried that with me. But the number of times I have felt the correlation between being a Cleveland fan and a Tottenham fan. And then when they announced last year, or not last year, whenever they announced it, that the Browns are playing.
Yes, it
Like,
is great.
makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. And I feel like, for any local Tottenham fans who attend the game, they're going to feel, like it's, they'll give them the home away from home.
It is. Now you're in good company up there as well in terms of your famous Cleveland Tottenham supporters.
Yes.
You got Windy
Yep.
and Emmett Golden,
Yeah.
the name of two.
I feel like we're just drawn to it. Like, and I didn't even know at the time the torture I was signing myself up for.
Right.
I was just like, this is where I landed, and this is now my team. And then as I grew, it grew on me. And similar to being a Browns fan in particular, you just like, no matter how hard you try, you can't get it off of you.
No, you can't. You can't. It's just one of those things. I have now. So you have two sons, yes?
Yes.
Okay. How old are they, if you don't mind me asking?
They are 9 and 11.
9, 11. Okay. All right. So have you indoctrinated them into the Cleveland sporting world and Spurs and so on and so forth? Or you're letting them make their own decisions? Because I didn't let my children make their own decisions.
I let them make their own right decisions.
Yes. Yes.
So they are, so keep in mind though, like they were born in 2013 and 2015. By the time they were 1 and 3, there was already an NBA championship. And yes, they have not seen a Spurs. What, the last trophy was 2008. So yes, they haven't seen a Spurs, but they are not Spurs fans. My elder child, he is a front runner. He just loves whoever is winning, which on one hand like hurts my soul, but then I'm also like, that's probably a little bit healthy.
Well, you know what? I think it's one of those things. it seems to me a lot of people. So first, kids today, I see my son's friends and people I'm around. They attach to players,
Right.
not the teams per se.
Right.
But then also as younger people, as they get older, at least who I was growing up with, yeah, maybe they were front runners, but then they kind of figured out, okay, this is where I'm at and these are my teams.
Yeah.
And it just takes time. You can't force anything. I have sadly um, gotten my son drawn into the Browns. He's a Brownsaholic with me, and it brings me great joy and sorrow that we have that together. Um,
Yep.
it's difficult, but if you can build a brand like that in Cleveland, just like the Browns, the Cavs, the Guardians, Indians, Monsters, to build a brand like that, how awesome would that feel to know, like, I brought that, I helped bring that here.
That's this journey is not easy. And the idea of building something that, people pass down from generation to generation, that brings them together, that gives them like that childhood memory of like, this is the first time my dad forced me to be a fan of this team. Like, that's like the really hard, parts of this process. Like, it's like, no, gotta push through, like, gotta get to the other side of this so that we can create that thing. And you said that you may have heard me say before, but we try to put soccer and dreams like at the center and build really smart business around it. But I believe, especially with soccer, and this may not work with every sport, but with soccer, I believe that if you put that first, the energy and like the authenticity like of what if you build that around your team, an authentic brand that is, powered by soccer and the love of it, like, that will grow into itself. And that will bring, there's obviously strategy around it. There's business and investment and a lot of, really smart choices that you have to build around it. So it's not just build it and they will come, or, if you build it, they will come. But it is, create something that, is grown from the ground up. And you will be able to just have generations of fans that keep showing up and bring friends and bring their children, and and wear you very proudly on their chest.
Yep, exactly. I'm going to get to another question from Mike in just a moment. We're going to take just a brief pause here to get a word in for the sponsors. You are tuned into the Best Doggone podcast in the land on the Fanatical Elves Network. And welcome back, everybody, to the Best Doggone podcast in the land here on the Fanatical Elves Network, a subsidiary of Fans First Sports Network. I'm Ethan Greenberg. Heather is not with us today as the blue screen of death cursed her, and I curse Windows computers for that. But with us here, our guest is Gina Prodan Kelly. Gina, thank you so much for spending your valuable time with us. We really do appreciate it. Mike asked a good question. I know that you've been putting out feelers for names. Have you been putting out feelers for colors for the men's and or women's teams?
Yes. So right now, if I actually had originally said we were going to close this survey for both the men's team and the women's teams at the end of April, but we continue to get a lot of responses, and so I want to keep hearing it. So yes, right now, and I'll continue to promote this and push it a little more, just so it gets in front of people again. You can look on our social media profiles and find the link, but I can also put it somewhere on our website more accessibly. But we're asking people for a lot of questions, like what team names would you love for each one? What colors? What themes or words or like historical legacies? What really conjures up like those feelings for you about Cleveland. And we want to really create something on both sides that is uniquely Cleveland, that people will be proud to represent, and something that looks great. That's the last thing I want to do is put build have all this build up for these two teams and then have the brands just kind of be meh.
Right.
And it's not going to be, and I always tell people, like, it's not going to be perfect for every single person. And I want to set that expectation, because, we're not going to be able to, because we've had, so when I first opened that survey, within the first 2 hours, we had about 200 responses. And it's been so wonderful reading people's, one of the first questions is, what are 3 words that describe the way Cleveland makes you feel? And it's like the I don't know, the feelings that come out of people when you ask that question, the good, the bad. But we really want to capture, what the feeling is that people want from these teams. So we don't have any names yet, because I do believe that, this is kind of, you have to collect all of the input and,
Well, yeah, if you
go
don't
through it
know,
and
yeah.
feel your way through the next step.
What did you think? And I'm not trying to get into anything deep here, but like some people are good with the baseball team now being named the Guardians. It's not even that they necessarily don't like the name Guardians. They were mad because it changed. But what do you think about Guardians and the basis for that?
All right, so I'm biased because I've always thought that the baseball team should be called the Guardians.
Really? How?
Yes, I for years, I've always loved the Guardians on the bridge. I feel like and I'm really glad that, especially in the past 20 some years, that they've really caught on as an icon of the city. I think that people outside the city finally, recognize what they are, particularly because of the baseball team. I don't, I think I don't have a problem with change. So I embraced it. And I think what they did well was, particularly, now I know a lot of people are opposed to the G logo, and I always get into disagreements about it because my name is Gina. So I'm like, cool, G.
Yes.
I don't care. Like, it's a G, so like it resonates with me. But I think that especially their implementations of the brand, where it does have more of like that Art Deco feel, I think it really captures not only the design of the Guardians, but kind of that era of Cleveland, when Cleveland was a world leader, and we have every opportunity in the world to be that in every area that Cleveland has business or teams or communities in. If we just get out of our own freaking way, we can take off. And that's
Absolutely.
a symbol of that.
No, absolutely. And I put up there on the screen the Twitter or the X account at Cle Pro Soccer. Is that a good place to go to?
Yeah. When we're done, I'll pin that survey at the top again.
Okay, fantastic. Definitely want to direct people there. So again, lots of things, lots of moving pieces and parts here, and it's been a long journey, but the journey is far from over. When will you be able to start recruiting potential players for this league?
So probably about summer next year.
Okay.
While we don't have the plan, we don't have the plans completed yet. But on the women's side, we'll likely do some form of combine. I believe we're looking at opportunities to work with other leagues to create a combine where we can bring a lot of talent together. But then especially at that point, we will have hired our technical team, have our sporting philosophy in place, understand what our coach is looking for, and be able to start evaluating talent. Probably in summer, fall next year. We obviously want to capture the college season, start paying attention to players, and also like during the summer being able to watch the WPSL. That league has been one of the strongest pillars of the U.S. women's soccer development ecosystem. Something like 54% of NWSL draftees since 2018 played in the WPSL, the amateur league, and like Alex Morgan played in WPSL. Rose Lavelle, so like names that
That's
people
amazing.
know.
Yeah, definitely. You talked about this again on another interview, but okay, the WNBA players, for example, they are stars. They are stars and are drawing crowds. Yet they make a pittance compared to their male counterparts. And then I talked to the guys when we talked to Ryan Ruiz about the fellows from the Crunch. I mean, that's just a part-time gig. Um, will this be the type of opportunity, or do you hope that it can turn into an opportunity that someone can make a living doing this and not have to have 5 jobs on the side?
So something close to 98% of female athletes consider retiring each year because they can't afford to be a professional athlete anymore. One of the reasons why I got involved in WPSL Pro and was fortunate enough to have that team acquired by Cleveland Soccer Group, I wanted to challenge the system. I wanted to create the revenue and the business plan that would support an operation that could pay women athletes to have a full-time job as a professional athlete. And not only for my team and for the league to have that be the standard, but to force the other leagues to do the same thing. If you can get paid more playing at Division II, and then you're gonna like if I can continue my career professionally, maybe I feel like that's going to force a lot of decisions to be made. But also in our league, what we aim to do is think about the whole human being and her entire career. Very few soccer players are playing into their 30s, into their 40s, into their 50s. And they're not earning salaries where they're retiring at 31. So what we want to do is be able to have the opportunities for women, especially in the latter years of their careers, be able to play in WPSL Pro and not only be signed as a player, but be signed as a mentor, and be able to have leadership and peer-to-peer coaching, that type of relationship be part of their job description. And then if they also have an interest in coaching in front office, that there will be a professional development pathway there. There's too much of sell this product, this human being product mindset in sports, particularly it feels like in soccer and for women's soccer. And I think that this is an opportunity to really challenge that system, create something better at this lower division, and attract the world's best talent to play in Cleveland and the other markets that are in WPSL Pro.
There's just so many, because of the melting pot that is the United States, and people come from Europe and other countries where soccer is the main sport. There's a real opportunity there. I know that my niece, and I see a lot of people, she played travel soccer and the cost was abundant. How is that sustainable? Like, you think, oh, I have to go play with this travel group in order to get noticed.
It's not. And the current state, and this is something that I've had a lot of conversations with people. There are so many decisions right now being made about youth soccer that are not based at all on development or families, that are only putting, I feel like in other countries, the reason why at 4.5 million people, Croatia is able to produce the level of talent it is that they aren't going about soccer the way that we do here, where only the people whose families are willing to travel extraordinary lengths, to spend, who have the luxury to be able to drive places, spend their weekends places, spend thousands of dollars. It's not sustainable, and it's not going to produce a level of talent that will make us competitive. There are academies, especially MLS academies, MLS Next academies that are, that do provide tuition-free training. But that's not the solution for you also have to, and to get into, and this is not a criticism of those academies, but to get into those academies, you already have to be in a program. So your family already has to be able to reach that. So that's a systemic problem that if we're serious about soccer, we keep, we're so excited to have the 2026 World Cup, and then we'll have the 2031 World Cup. We're so serious about soccer, and then we have to start being serious about the development of talent and not pretend that only people who can afford it are the ones who are going to be, I believe very firmly that, soccer, like true soccer talent is, a huge part of it is like if your heart's not in it, you can have the best training in the world and you're not going to be the top talent in the world. You have to be driven from something else. You have to long to have the ball at your feet every single day. And that isn't only people, it can certainly be people whose families can afford it. I'm not saying that segment of the population is not it's like that's part of it, but that's not, if we want to rise to a different level, we can't limit it to only that segment of the population.
Yeah, that it seems cost prohibitive. It
Right.
really does, and it's kind of sad. It is kind of sad. Like I again quoting something you said elsewhere, but you need a ball. You got a ball, and maybe you don't even need goalposts. You can put up some cones.
I went to a game. We went to an Akron City FC match last season, and they're in a wonderful venue. And the end of the field has just an open patch of grass. And I brought 3 boys with me, and there were a handful of other kids there, and somebody had a ball. There were no goals, so they all took off their shoes and piled them up. I have this beautiful picture of they have 4 little piles of shoes, and it was very clear where the goals were, and it didn't stop them. They played. I mean, they watched the game while they were playing the game, and it was beautiful. But it was the essence of what this is, how easy it is, and even some of the kids who were there were really talented soccer players, and then some kids were just kind of still figuring it out. It's one of the few games where you can have, world-class talent and somebody who is just getting onto a pitch play the same game.
Right. Now, something that just popped into my head here, or to quote Thomas the Train, it flew into my funnel. You talked about the 2031 World Cup. I recall in the last World Cup that they were playing on sites. They were playing on not the artificial grass. They were playing on artificial grass. Are they going to change that for the 2031 World Cup? And what kind of grass are you planning on planting at this new stadium?
Oh, I don't know what they'll be playing for the World Cup. I do know that Tottenham is playing on pure plastic tomorrow.
Oh, oh no.
But what for our field, so for our stadium, we have currently about 60 events planned per year. We don't want this to be something we build and we play a few games and then it's just dormant. We want this to become a community asset that people can come to and be part of in a lot of different ways. So we are making sure that it's designed, to suit rugby and to suit lacrosse and different games, but still be optimized for soccer. We will not have 70 different lines on the field. But to that end, we want, ideally we'd love natural grass, but for that many events, we are talking, we will be talking to turf experts who can help us make the right decision for the quality of play, for, the quality for our players, but also what makes sense for that volume of feet.
It's a very difficult and fine line to have to balance on there. Maybe we should get the architects of Tottenham Hotspur Stadium to design that pitch that goes underground.
Yes.
And you can.
Oh, don't worry, I've definitely thought about that.
I mean, look, we're going to get some investors. That's it. We're just going to have to get some more investors and say, look, we want top of the line pitch here for our players, for our teams, but at the same time, let them have a mosh pit, Oh my gosh. Wait a second. What is this? Go ask Lionel Messi. He won't play on artificial grass. Yeah, I talked to Coach Rob Marinero for Kent State. And was asking him about the fact that they were playing games at Dick Stadium. I was like, what is going on? Because they used to play at Zeller Field when I was there. He explained that the pitch wasn't the right size. And a lot of these places they're playing now, I mean, they're playing on turf. And I'm just like, that seems like a rug burn nightmare.
Yeah. And and I think what people who may not play a lot of soccer or any soccer don't understand is like it's a very different game. You know, the ball moves differently. It's a different speed. It's a different, you know, my older son recently played in March actually. His team played their first outdoor game, but they played on a turf field, and I think it was the other team's first match, outdoor match, and it was on, you know, completely artificial turf. And it took, they were both very good teams, but it took probably the first quarter-ish of the game for them to really, for their passes to be on, to, you know, it was just like, you know, you'd see the first couple, you know, the first couple touches, it would be too like too far, too fast. It just wouldn't respond the same way. So then they would under touch it, and then they got the speed of it. But you know, there are other things to consider too, and just in terms of like how slippery it is, or you know, what types of, you know, I just see here Mike saying, yeah, injuries. Like, you know, if you're slipping, if your grip isn't there, you know, there are a lot of things to consider, and that's why, you know, we are pursuing you know, some sort of hybrid, so that we can, because the, you know, the flip side of that too is that like if you do have natural grass, but you have a large number of events, then you have injuries for different reasons.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough. Again, it's a fine line to balance here. So I'm going to switch the page a little bit here. So you were at Kent State. You did your undergrad at John Carroll.
Yes.
And then you went on and got your master's in journalism and mass communication, your Golden Flash.
Yes.
Were you, I guess, since you were doing it as a master, were you on campus there, or were you commuting?
So I worked there. I was very fortunate. I worked at Kent State, and I also worked at Case Western Reserve. And one of the benefits of working in higher education is free higher education. So I always describe it to people as I'm one of those people, when I work in an office, if there's a kitchen and there's free food, I get the free food. I loved working in higher education and just taking classes and learning and being able to pick up degrees. You know, I got my master's in journalism, as you said. I picked up a few certificates in other areas. I went to law school when I was at Case Western Reserve. I didn't finish, but it was fun. It was fun to have that benefit and be able to just learn more. It was less, especially with law school, it was less about, you know, I had no interest in becoming, you know, and practicing law, but it's something that particularly in my career has been helpful to kind of understand different, especially parts of intellectual property.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it through my various education, this is kind of funny. You talked about the person, you know, a professional. It's like nothing wrong with being a paralegal. Yeah, that's me. I'm a paralegal.
My mom is a paralegal too.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, there's absolutely no, but I use that example just because. So for anybody who's looking, so one of the many women I talked to over the past couple of years about their careers in soccer was a story that I heard a lot of, where you know they played in the NWSL or almost made it to the NWSL, and when they, you know, when they got cut from camps, you know, they had two choices. They could go to Iceland or Turkey or, you know, somewhere in Europe, if they could afford to go there to continue their career, or they could play in the summers. In her case, she was a paralegal. So I always think of her, and I always say, like, you can, you know, go to Iceland or you can be a paralegal, and nothing wrong with being a paralegal. But if your dream and you're that close to being a world-class athlete, and you have no other options, but you know, the male side of the US soccer system is stacked with options. That's where I try to tell that story, because like there's this big gap in the women's soccer system, and it's not just, I mean, it is absolutely, to me, about, you know, there needing to be some equality in the, I mean, there's not some pure equality in those systems. But again, when we look at the global landscape of soccer, you know, US women dominate, and we're not supporting them at all. We're not, you know, we are like losing some of our foothold. And I believe that part of that is like we need to support that, you know, that development, and not have it end just because you don't have the money for your family to send you you know, overseas to continue your career, which again goes back to that idea of it not being sustainable, or that you just don't have, you know, that your only opportunity, you know, might be to work your, you know, a full-time job. play summers in an amateur league and just try to get back up. And it's for people who are almost making it, like your choice is either top of the world or nothing. And we've been staring at that problem for decades.
And it stretches so far across so many different types of careers, not just athletics and sports, but it's amazing how you're like, do I go and shoot for my dreams and be poor and living on the street, or do I, and you're trying to figure all that out. So when you were at Kent, did you have any special favorite professors in the School of Journalism and Mass Communication?
Oh my God, Jackie Marino.
Why do I know? I'm trying now. Which area was she in? Was she in PR? Was she?
She's in like magazine journalism, I believe.
Okay, I don't know if she was there when I was there. I can't recall. I was dealing with the likes of Carl Shearhorn and Barb Hipsman, and Tim Smith. I think he passed away recently, but he did law.
Oh, he was the one who inspired me to go to law school. I didn't know.
There it is. There it is. So, yeah, he made my life was a lot harder the year that I took. I think I had him for news writing or one of my classes. He would not let me use my sports beat as my beat. I sadly made the decision to take the Greek beat, and that was not a wise choice. I would have probably been served better. I don't know, going to the Michael Schwartz Center and covering something there. Oh my goodness. And so much has changed. It's crazy. Did you have, all right. It's like, I could always ask, this question, favorite watering holes around Kent?
I don't know if it qualifies as a watering hole, but Taco Tantos is probably one of the best places on the planet.
Yeah. That and the Loft Pizza.
Yes.
That and the Loft Pizza. I don't know if I ever actually had Taco Tantos, but I definitely had the Loft.
Well, next time you're in town, definitely go. For anyone who is visiting Kent, the sweet potato black bean, even if you're not a vegetarian, is probably one of the more. And it doesn't even. I feel like it doesn't even like the name of it doesn't sound amazing, but it's one of the best experiences with food you'll have.
It's a hidden gem. I mean, it really is. I keep seeing it. I think it comes up on my Facebook feed a lot. So I'm really excited about that. Okay. So, will there be VAR?
I hope so. I hope so. I feel like if there is, there has to be, okay, this is where I don't know the back end operations of world-class sports, but why isn't there somebody just watching stuff and saying yes, no, yes, no? Like, it's not that hard. We're all doing it. Like, I went to a Cavs game recently, and like the minute they showed the replay, like everybody around me was like, "Here's the call." And
or you can do the Kenny Atkinson. Oh my God. Oh,
but it's I hope that maybe that's the other thing. We'll do, pay full-time pay and efficient VAR. Change the world.
And I brought that up in part because, obviously the soccer part of it, but then after our Cavs last night and the 2-minute report that came out, we were discussing it. Mike and we go back and forth and discussing the value in having an extra set of eyes, having that video and making those calls in real time to get it right. I liken it to the automated ball and strike system that they tested out and have been testing out in Major League Baseball. I'd rather them get it right than have a competitive disadvantage like in the 95 World Series when the Atlanta Braves are getting every strike possible and Albert Bell is like,
right. I saw a really good tweet today. It was maybe I'm just being catty, but it was a picture of a ref's shirt, and it said, "Look, I got a Pacers jersey."
It was so bad. It was so bad, and I mean, yeah. All right, that's it. Deep,
Everyone take a deep breath.
uh,
Let it go.
I gotta let it go. I mean, look, it's the series is not technically over.
Yeah.
Let's get some players back. Can we at
What I
least get a DG back?
do have to tell you, so I went to the last I tell this story to everyone whenever we need hope. The last game we lost in the 2016 finals, I went to whatever game was the last one we lost. I had a ticket for the next game, but I didn't go because I felt like I was bad luck. So one, you're welcome, Cleveland. I was like, I feel like I'm bad luck. I feel like it's me, which I think is probably one of the most self-centered things somebody can
It's
believe.
not.
But I felt like I was like, so I gave my ticket to a friend. But anyway, before I did that, I remember taking the train home, and everyone on the train, despite us being down 3-1, was like, no, we're coming back. We're not like, this is the year. This is the year we're going to win. We're coming back. And everybody on the train was so optimistic and talked about how it was going to happen, what we were going to do, why it was totally feasible that we would, we were going to win this series. And it happened. So I feel like being down 2-0-2 to the Pacers, we almost beat the Pacers like during the regular season with our
Right,
bench.
with
And then
nobody
yesterday,
playing, and they had their starters on the floor. I just gotta see some guys come back and be able to play. We so desperately need to see at least Garland and Mobley. Hunter, I don't know, with the dislocated
right.
thumb on his shooting hand. I mean, I don't know, but
I just
yeah,
want to say, for anybody who knows me, I ran. This isn't a good story. I ran a marathon with 2 fractured legs. I didn't know at the time they were fractures. I thought they were shin splints, but they were full
uh-huh.
fractures. I ran a 20-minute best time, and I feel like sometimes you got to push through.
Yeah, that like we were discussing beforehand. I don't know the extent of these injuries, but
Right. Yeah,
it's
I also like know that they have careers. I didn't have a running career ahead of me.
right, but it stinks for us as fans
Mhm.
because isn't it difficult that we invest so much of ourselves, yet we have absolutely zero control over it. And we just sit there and take the hours out of our days and the money to watch these things, and you're hoping for good, and it may not go your way. And oh,
But when it does,
oh
it's such a like, and I feel like I always feel sad. So I watch too much sports. I go to
no,
too many.
no, you're good.
No, I watch too much sports. I go to too many games. I play too many games. All of it. But I feel like people who are completely removed from sports, like they haven't experienced something where I feel like the rest of us have, because it's not just, oh, there's joy. Yes, it's joy, but I feel like there's no real description why on earth you would invest this much. And it's not like I'm not trying to fulfill my unfulfilled hopes and dreams. No, there's something about just watching someone like try to be the best in the world, or try to come together to achieve this thing, and having all of us be excited and cheering for them. you know there's something special about it, and people who are removed from it, I feel bad. I mean, hopefully they have something that is equal.
And I can share on a personal level. My wife, she's not a huge sports fan, and her family isn't that large, big into the sports. I mean, and I don't know if it's because of, they grew up no professional sports teams. She's from Wilmington, North Carolina,
Hmm.
and so they didn't have until she was a lot older a professional football team, but that's in Charlotte.
Hmm.
And there's no specific professional baseball team or basketball team. You have a lot of college stuff, of course, but so it's like she'll watch and she'll be interested, but I don't think sometimes she gets the joy I get out of it and the agony. There's a lot more agony as a Cleveland fan, and a Spurs fan, but I do get the joy. That 2016 championship on Father's Day. And I drug my 5-year-old son to Cleveland 3 days later or 2 days later to be there for the parade with my dad, my brother, and my oldest niece, and my son, and it's something I'll never forget. And those are the memories and experiences that I think some people are like they take for granted, or they don't realize that's some of the things you can get out of it. there is some good joy out of it.
Yeah, I remember. So I was doing some sort of training at the time of the parade, and I remember the person who was leading the training. She wasn't from Cleveland, so I don't think she understood why what was happening. But I remember like half of us were like, "No, we're not missing this for anything. Like, I'll get docked, whatever. Like, I for this. Like, this is. I mean, it could be a once in a lifetime." So like we left, and I remember, they were like, "All right, we'll come back in an hour." It's like, I'll come back when it's done. And I am so happy that I was able to wander my way through downtown. And I was in a number of places and saw just different parts of not only the parade and, the guys in the parade, and getting to see like the monsters and Stipe.
Yes.
But seeing like, what were there, like a million? There were a million people, I believe.
Yes, it was over 1 million, and it was amazing. And
Yeah.
MGK was there. I really don't care about MGK, but he was there.
But still, he was there.
And shirtless J.R. Smith.
Yes.
And as Mike reminded me, I also took my son to his first Indians game that night. We took the Rapids. We took the Rapids, back home. Had to try and wade through the Tower City, the line of people.
Oh, I can't imagine.
To get the Rapid, and then we came back and we went to the ball game that night. So it just, again, experiences. So what is this? He camped out overnight for the parade. I'm telling you, this guy is committed. Do you know what time? Gina, it's like after midnight there. It's 1:30 in the morning, and this guy's still up. He stays up for everything. He watches more Cleveland sports than I do.
Well, I love that sort of that dedication, and I always think of so for anyone who pays attention to especially like lower division soccer, Portland Hearts of Pine just launched their brand at the end of last year, I believe, and they put so much effort into researching, doing community outreach, doing iterations on their brand to create something that I think is pure magic. I feel like they created something visual that's beautiful, and then they have a story, that they're continuing to tell. Not just like on social media, but the story they're telling and the way like they are, the players that they signed, how they created their home stadium. Everything they're doing to build that brand to be like purely authentically Maine is inspirational. But you'll see people from around the world like just becoming fans. And we had the president of the club is actually from Cleveland, so he was gracious enough to welcome us to a conversation. And my first question to him was, why did you take your brand so seriously? They're a USL1 club, which I feel like soccer, it's really easy to just be like, like this is the logo that Canva gave me. And that's really unfortunate because it's a huge miss. And I said, why did you take your brand so seriously? I mean, it's like world-class brand. And he talked to us about not only like why it meant a lot to them, to build that, from a business perspective, but what a big difference that would make in how people perceived Maine and how people perceive soccer in Maine. And it was like, that's my goal, is to create something that is that powerful, that beautiful, and that like people around the world. So all of the Tottenham fans will also be Cleveland fans.
Yes, absolutely. And Mike said, I'll just put this one out there. He said, "Don't be telling me Cleveland soccer is going to be available to watch online. You're going to
Yes, it will.
Oh, well, I'm sure you're going to need a broadcaster."
Yes, absolutely. You're on my list.
All right. There we go. Okay. Well, so Gina, just once again, final thoughts, and we definitely would love to have you back on as we go through this process, because people need to know about this. They need to be kept in the loop. It is such an exciting opportunity, and to kind of be able to see it from the ground floor up and be there, be the first group, I think would just be amazing. Kind of just closing thoughts, anything you want people to know.
Well, I encourage everyone to follow us on social and to sign up for updates on our website, not just to build numbers, but because that's where we're telling the story, and that's where you have the opportunity to be part of the story, whether it's weighing in on what the brands are for the men's team or the women's team, helping us shape what the stadium experience will look like, helping us shape what partners will work with, or even we have a survey out there for where we should build our next mini pitch. We believe with our whole hearts that soccer grows from the ground up. And we try to live that every single day. And the biggest part of that is hearing from people. In general, if you send a question, it might take a while sometimes, depending on the volume. But I try to get back to every single person. And if I don't, I will eventually. But we've been so lucky to have people want to talk to us about what we're doing and send us their ideas, and we welcome that. So please, just tell us what moves you. Tell us what you want soccer to look and feel like in Cleveland, and help us build it. And also tell somebody, tell a friend, just talk about soccer, even if it's not about us. Go to Cleveland SC, go to Ohio City SC,
Right.
go to Akron City FC, go to games, go to internationals. Just launched WPSL team. They'll be kicking off this month. Show up to games. We are not just plopping these teams on top of what's here. We want to fill from the bottom up. We want every single stand and every single match, from amateur leagues all the way up to whatever we build, to be filled, because we know that Cleveland has that volume of soccer passion and energy.
Wow, that is a great closing message statement, and I I'm so appreciative of you giving the time to be here with me tonight, and tell all the listeners, the people who are watching and all over the world, as we know here, even as far as the UK, about this great, exciting experience that's going on. So, folks, please be sure to check out the social media, the Cle Pro Soccer on X or Twitter, whichever you prefer to call it. You can go to the clevelandprosoccer.com, and then also just information as well about WPSLsoccer.com as well. So, again, Gina, thank you so much for being with us. And again, folks, be sure to follow the Best Doggone podcast on YouTube. You can check out all the fine shows on the Fanatical Elves Network, a subsidiary of Fans First Sports Network. So, Gina, again, thank you so much. And with that, we will say goodnight until next time. Thanks all for listening to the Best Doggone podcast. Thank you.